Rain hammered the neon-slicked streets of New Geneva as Marcus John pulled his collar higher against the artificial wind tunnels created by the towering arcologies. 30 years since first contact, and the city still felt like two worlds awkwardly stitched together, human steel and glass reaching toward the sky, while alien bioarchitecture pulsed with organic light at street level. His office sat wedged between a human pawn shop and a resonary harmony clinic, the perfect metaphor for his life, caught between species, trusted by neither, needed by both. The door chimed with an alien melody as his latest client entered, ducking through the frame designed for human proportions. HFY moved with the fluid grace of his people, his translucent skin shifting through deep blues and purples colors. Marcus had learned indicated profound distress. The resonary businessman's elaborate robes marked him as wealthy, but his emotional aura flickered like a dying star. Detective Chun. HFY's voice carried harmonic undertones that resonated. In Marcus's chest, I am told you find the lost ones. Just Marcus. I'm not a detective anymore. He gestured to the chair across from his desk, watching as HFY settled into it with careful precision. What can I do for you? The alien's skin rippled through shades of silver and gold grief, mixed with desperate hope. My wife, Lyra, has been taken from me. The human authorities claim she left voluntarily, but this is impossible. Our bond? It has been severed. Marcus leaned forward. He'd worked enough cases involving the Resonari to understand the basics of their empathic connections. Bonded pairs shared thoughts, emotions, even dreams. The sudden severance of such a link was said to be excruciating. When did you last see her? 3 months ago. She was visiting the cultural district, purchasing human art for our collection. She never returned. HFY's colors darkened to deep violet. I felt her terror, her pain, then nothing. Silence where once there was music. Marcus pulled up a holographic notepad. The police report says she emptied your joint accounts before disappearing. That suggests planning, not kidnapping. Impossible. The alien's aura flared bright orange anger. Lyra would never. She could not survive without our bond. It would be like asking a human to live without breathing. Something in the alien's tone made Marcus pause. He'd heard similar words from human husbands who couldn't understand why their wives left them. The universal language of denial. Tell me about Lyra. What was she like? HFY's colors softened to warm gold. Beautiful. Gentle. She sang the most exquisite harmonies when we were bonded. She was perfect. Perfect how? She never questioned. Never resisted. She understood her place in our family's honor. The alien's pride was visible as bright yellow streaks across his skin. Her father chose well when he arranged our bonding. She brought great prestige to both our houses. Marcus felt a familiar. Not in his stomach. Arranged? She didn't choose you? Choice? HFY's skin shifted to confused patterns of blue and silver. Why would she need to choose? Her family selected me for compatibility. I provided for her, protected her, loved her. What more could she want? The question hung in the air between them like a challenge. Marcus had learned to read alien expressions over the years, but sometimes the cultural gaps felt as wide as the space between stars. My fee is 5,000 credits, plus expenses. I'll need photos, personal items, anywhere she might have gone. HFY reached into his robes and withdrew a data crystal that pulsed with inner light. This contains her resonance signature, her favorite memories, everything that made her her. Bring her home, detective. I will pay any price. As the alien left, Marcus stared at the crystal, watching the swirling patterns of light within. Somewhere in this city, Lyra was hiding. The question was whether she was running from her kidnappers or her husband, the undergrowth. stretched beneath New Geneva like a living nervous system, its bioluminescent corridors pulsing with alien technology. Marcus descended into the depths where the city's underground economy thrived, place where species boundaries blurred, and questions weren't asked. Dr. Sarah Voss, the city's leading expert on interspecies psychology, had agreed to meet him at a neutral location, a cafe that served both human coffee and resonari liquid light. Her weathered face showed the strain of decades working the cultural divide. "You're looking for a missing resonari wife," she said, stirring her drink with practiced efficiency. "Let me guess, husband claimed she was kidnapped. Police think she ran away." Marcus nodded, sliding the data crystal across the table. "What do you know about resonari bonding rituals?" Sarah's expression darkened. "More than I'd like." The resonari presented as romantic two souls becoming one. "But when you dig deeper, double quotes." She paused, choosing her words carefully. "Marcus, what humans call love requires choice. What the resonari call bonding is closer to psychological imprisonment. Explain." During the bonding ceremony, both parties open their empathic barriers completely, but the male typically maintains dominance, essentially imprinting his emotional patterns onto his mate. She becomes a reflection of what he wants her to be. Marcus felt his jaw tighten. "And that's considered normal?" "By their culture, yes. The bonded female rarely develops independent desires again. She exists in a state of constant emotional harmony with her husband's needs." Sarah leaned forward. "But Marcus, if a resonari woman somehow broke free from that conditioning, she'd be desperate to stay free. Desperate enough to use illegal tech to suppress her natural abilities. There's a black market in empathic dampeners, dangerous devices that can permanently damage a Maya resonari's ability to connect with others." Marcus absorbed this information, pieces of the puzzle clicking into place. Where would someone go to get these dampeners? The undergrowth. There's a clinic run by a human named Victor Reese. He specializes in helping aliens who want to blend in. The address led Marcus deeper into the biotunnels, past markets selling impossible foods and technologies that defied human understanding. The clinic occupied a converted maintenance bay, its entrance marked only by a small sign in multiple languages. Victor Reese was a thin man with cybernetic implants around his eyes, black market tech that allowed him to see across multiple spectrums. His waiting room was filled with aliens of various species, all seeking invisibility in human society. "Dr. Reese, I'm investigating a missing person case. I need to know if you've treated a resonari woman named Lyra." The man's augmented eyes whirred as they focused on Marcus. "I don't discuss my patients. Medical confidentiality crosses species lines." Marcus placed a credit chip on the counter. "I'm not law enforcement. I just need to know if she's safe." Reese palmed the chip, his expression never changing. 3 months ago, a resonari woman came to me. Desperate, she begged me to install a neural dampener military grade, the kind that completely suppresses empathic abilities. Did you do it? I told her it was dangerous. That kind of suppression can cause permanent psychological damage. She said she'd rather die than feel again. His voice carried a note of professional regret. I gave her a temporary solution, a bioimplant that would mask her empathic signature for maybe 6 months. After that, she'd need to decide whether to get it removed or risk permanent damage. I haven't seen her since. But if she's still in the city, her time is running out. Marcus left the clinic with a growing sense of urgency. Lyra wasn't just hiding, she was dying by degrees, cutting herself off from the very essence of her being to stay free. The question was whether she'd choose death over returning to her husband's idea of love. As he emerged into the artificial daylight of the upper city, Marcus realized he was no longer just tracking a missing person. He was racing against time to save someone who might not want to be saved. The Universal Translation Bureau occupied an entire floor of the administrative tower, its vast halls filled with beings from across the galaxy facilitating communication between species. Marcus had spent 3 days tracking financial records and surveillance footage before the breakthrough came. Lyra was working here under the assumed name Lin Shun. The irony wasn't lost on him. She'd chosen his surname, perhaps subconsciously seeking protection from the human who would eventually hunt her down. She stood at translation. Station 7, her natural resonary luminescence dimmed to almost human levels. Without her empathic abilities, she moved differently, more cautiously, like someone navigating the world half-blind. Her traditional robes had been replaced by a simple human business suit, but she couldn't hide the elegant bone structure that marked her as clearly alien. Marcus watched her work, translating a heated negotiation between human shipping executives and a hive-minded species called the Collective. Her translations were flawless, but he noticed something else. She instinctively positioned herself to protect the smaller alien delegates from the humans. Aggressive posturing. During her break, she sat alone in the cafeteria, staring at a cup of tea that had gone cold. Marcus approached slowly, like someone encountering a wounded animal. Lyra? She looked up, and he saw her skin flash through rapid color changes: fear, recognition, despair. The dampener couldn't completely suppress her physiological responses. "You're the hunter," she said quietly. "HFY hired you. I'm Marcus Chun, and yes, your husband hired me to find you." He sat down across from her, noting how she instinctively leaned away. "But right now, I'm more interested in why you're hiding." Her laugh was bitter, more human than any sound he'd heard from a resonary. "Why? Because for the first time in my life, I can think my own thoughts, feel my own emotions. Do you know what it's like to wake up one day and realize you've been living someone else's dreams? Tell me." Lyra's hands trembled as she spoke. "I was 17 when they bonded me to HFY. I remember the ceremony, the moment when his consciousness flooded mine, rewriting everything I was. My love of music became his preferred harmonies. My curiosity about other worlds became his tolerance for necessary business travel. Even my dreams weren't my own anymore." Marcus felt a familiar anger building in his chest. "But you broke free. How?" "Accident. 3 months ago, I was caught in an explosion at the transport hub. The shock severed our connection temporarily. And in that moment of silence, I remembered who I used to be." Her skin rippled with colors he'd never seen before, a complex pattern of loss and liberation. "I couldn't go back. I couldn't let him remake me again. The dampener is killing you." "I know." She touched the small device behind her ear, barely visible beneath her hair. "Dr. Reese told me I have maybe 3 more months before permanent damage. But 3 months of being myself is worth more than a lifetime of being his perfect wife." Marcus studied her face, seeing the determination beneath the fear. "What if there was another way?" "There isn't. If I remove the dampener, he'll feel me immediately. The bonding link will reestablish itself, and I'll lose myself again." She stood to leave, then paused. "Are you going to tell him where I am?" The question hung between them like a challenge. Marcus thought of his contract, his debts, the money he desperately needed. Then he looked at Lyra, really looked at her, and saw something he recognized. The same desperate hunger for freedom that had driven him to become a detective in the first place. "Not yet," he said finally. "But Lyra, your husband isn't going to give up, and there are others looking for you." "Others?" "Anti-alien extremists. Some of them think kidnapping prominent resonary citizens might force your people to leave Earth." Marcus pulled up a holographic display showing surveillance footage. "They've been monitoring your husband's movements, trying to find leverage." Her skin paled to almost transparent. "They think I'm a victim. Aren't you?" "Not of them. Never of them. She sat back down, her composure cracking. Marcus, I need to ask you something. When you look at me, do you see an alien trying to be human? Or do you see someone just trying to be free? The question struck deeper than he expected. I see someone brave enough to choose herself over everyone else's expectations. For the first time since he'd found her, Lyra smiled. It was a small, sad smile, but it was entirely her own. Thank you, she whispered. No one has ever said that to me before. Marcus's apartment in the mid-level district reflected his life. Caught between worlds, belonging to neither. Human furniture mixed with alien artifacts from old cases, creating a space that felt simultaneously familiar and foreign. He'd brought Lyra here after surveillance footage showed extremist groups closing in on the Translation Bureau. She sat on his couch, the empathic dampener's soft hum barely audible in the quiet room. Without the constant input of others' emotions, she seemed smaller somehow, more fragile. How long have you been alone? She asked, studying the photographs on his walls. Since the incident that ended my career. Marcus poured 2 cups of coffee, noting how she held hers like a human, despite never having developed the taste for it. I made a judgment call during a hostage situation. Chose to trust an alien negotiator over my human captain. 3 people died because I couldn't bridge the cultural gap. Is that why you became a tracker? Penance? Maybe. Or maybe I just wanted to prove that understanding between species was possible. He sat across from her, maintaining careful distance. What? About you? What did you want to be before the bonding? Lyra's skin shifted through soft patterns of memory. A composer. I wrote music that tried to capture the emotions of different species' harmony that could be understood across cultures. Her voice carried a wistful note. I had a piece I was working on about the loneliness of beings who could never truly touch each other's minds. Ironic, considering your people's telepathic abilities. Not telepathic. Empathic. We feel each other's emotions, but thoughts remain private. Or they're supposed to. She touched the dampener unconsciously. The bonding changes that. Your husband's emotional patterns become so dominant that your own thoughts start to mirror his. You become an echo of what he wants to hear. Marcus felt his anger flare again. That's not love, that's possession. By human standards, yes. But HFY genuinely believes he loves me. In his culture, the complete merging of 2 beings is the highest form of intimacy. She looked at him with eyes that held ancient sadness. He would be horrified to know I consider it a violation. The communication device on Marcus's desk chimed with an incoming message. HFY's image appeared in holographic form, his colors cycling through impatient patterns. Detective Chun, I have not heard from you in 3 days. Have you found any trace of my wife? Marcus glanced at Lyra, who had gone very still. I'm following several leads. These things take time. Time is something I do not have. The Council of Families grows impatient. If Lyra is not found soon, they will assume she has been killed and demand retribution against the human extremists. Retribution? The trade agreements between our species hang in balance. If the Council believes humans cannot protect mercenary citizens, they will recommend withdrawal from Earth. HFY's image flickered with distress. Find her, Detective. Too much depends on her safe return. The transmission ended, leaving Marcus and Lyra in heavy silence. An interspecies incident, she said quietly. I knew this would happen eventually. It's not your fault, isn't it? One chose my freedom over the stability of 2 worlds. She stood, pacing to the window that overlooked the city's mixed architecture. Maybe I should go back, accept what I am, and spare everyone the consequences. Don't. The word came out more forcefully than Marcus intended. Don't you dare sacrifice yourself for politics. She turned to face him, and he saw something shift. In her expression, Why do you care so much? You barely know me. The question hung between them like a challenge. Marcus realized he was standing closer to her than he'd intended, close enough to see the faint patterns of light that played across her skin, even with the dampener active. Because I recognize the look in your eyes, he said quietly. The same look I had when I realized I'd rather lose everything than compromise my principles. And where did that get you? Here, with you, trying to figure out if there's a way to save someone who actually deserves saving. Their eyes met across the cultural divide, and Marcus felt something he hadn't experienced in years. Hope. Not for himself, but for the possibility that two beings from different worlds could understand each other without losing themselves in the process. There might be a way, Lyra said slowly, but it would require trusting me with something dangerous. What kind of dangerous? The kind that could expose a conspiracy that goes much deeper than one missing wife. The abandoned subway tunnels beneath New Geneva's old quarter had become a refuge for those who existed in the spaces between worlds. Marcus followed Lyra through passages that glowed with bioluminescent fungi, their footsteps echoing off walls that had been carved by both human and alien hands. There, she said, pointing to a junction where several tunnels converged. The others will be waiting. Others, you'll see. The chamber they entered was larger than Marcus expected, filled with resonari, who moved with the same cautious energy. As Lyra, their skin patterns were muted, artificial all of them, wearing empathic dampeners. But unlike Lyra, these were crude medical devices. They were sophisticated pieces of technology that seemed to enhance rather than suppress their natural abilities. Sisters, Lyra said, her voice carrying harmonics Marcus had never heard before. I've brought the hunter. A tall resonari woman approached, her skin cycling through patterns of cautious welcome. I am Verahai, former bonded wife of Counselor Thexhai. We have been watching your investigation with interest, Marcus Chun. How many of you are there? 47 confirmed. Perhaps twice that number who haven't yet found the courage to break free. Verahai gestured to the chamber around them. We call ourselves the unbonded women who have chosen to remember who we were before the ceremonies. Marcus absorbed this information, pieces of a larger puzzle falling into place. The dampeners you're using, they're not medical devices. Military technology, Lyra confirmed. Designed to allow resonari soldiers to function independently in combat situations. They don't suppress our abilities. They create a buffer zone that lets us choose when and how to connect with others. Where did you get them? From humans who understand oppression, Verahai said. Your species has a long history of fighting for individual freedom. Some of your people recognized what was happening to us and chose to help. A new voice entered the conversation, male, human, familiar. They chose to help because slavery is slavery, regardless of the species involved. Marcus turned to see Detective Ray Morrison, his former partner, emerging from the shadows. The man's weathered face showed the strain of maintaining multiple identities. Ray, what the hell are you doing here? What you should have been doing from the beginning, actually investigating instead of just tracking. Morrison's expression was grim. Marcus, the missing resonari women aren't isolated incidents. It's a pattern. The Council of Families has been systematically identifying and retrieving any bonded woman who shows signs of independence. Retrieving? Reconditioning. Medical procedures that make the bonding permanent and irreversible. Verahai's skin rippled, with barely contained rage. They call it treatment for bonding dysfunction. Lyra stepped forward, her decision crystallizing. That's why I need you to help us expose this. Not just to save me, but to save all of us. Marcus felt the weight of choice settling on his shoulders. What do you need? Your husband's files, Verahai said. Zephihai is involved in the program, probably unknowingly. But his business records will show the financial connections to the medical facilities performing these procedures. I can't just break into his records. You don't have to, Lyra said quietly. I still have access to our shared accounts. But I need someone I trust to help me navigate the human legal system. The plan was elegant in its simplicity. Lyra would provide the financial evidence while Marcus used his connections to get the information to the right authorities. The unbonded would coordinate their testimonies to create an undeniable pattern of abuse. But as they prepared to leave the chamber, alarms began echoing through the tunnels. Emergency lights bathed the walls in red, and the sound of approaching footsteps echoed from multiple directions. Council security forces, Verahai said, her skin flashing danger patterns. Someone betrayed us. The chamber erupted into controlled chaos as the unbonded scattered through pre-planned escape routes. Marcus found himself running alongside Lyra through passages that seemed to shift and change around them. The surface access, she said, pointing to a ladder that disappeared into darkness above. We can reach your apartment through the maintenance tunnels. As they climbed, Marcus realized they weren't just escaping pursuit. They were ascending toward a confrontation that would determine the fate of two species' relationship. Whatever happens, Lyra said as they reached the surface, I want you to know that these past days have been the first time I've felt truly alive. It's not over yet, Marcus replied, but he knew the real battle was just beginning. Behind them, the sounds of pursuit grew closer, while ahead lay the uncertain promise of a future where love might finally be freely chosen rather than imposed. In the distance, New Geneva's towers reached toward the stars, their lights reflecting the hopes and fears of two worlds learning to coexist. And somewhere in that maze of steel and dreams, the truth waited to be revealed, no matter the cost. The END